Hi, Noreen here. I'm back again today with two cards for Love is in the Details, showing another way to use snowflake dies. For the Joy card, I began by creating a file in the Silhouette program. I really like this program for creating cut files from scratch. I drew a box on the screen the same size as an A2 card, that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I could adjust the word to fit nicely within the card boundaries. After I cut out the word joy, the Noel is for another project and upcoming video. Stay tuned for that. Killing birds, you know. I lightly traced the outline of the J and the Y with a pencil. Next I used some post-it paper and I cut some snowflakes. Any snowflake dies would look nice, and if you don't have these ones from Simon Says Stamp, you could also cut snowflakes with a Silhouette or a Cricut or any other type of electronic die cutter. I chose one of the snowflakes that I had cut out and placed it on the card front in the position where the O would be in Joy, and laid it down, burnished it to stick really well, and then traced around its outlines with a pencil. This is what I mean by lightly tracing, but I want it to be lighter still. So then I ran the flat side of an eraser over the whole design until you can just barely see the outline. The reason for that is because I'm going to watercolor paint around the edges, and any pencil marks that are left will get trapped underneath the paint wherever I'm not careful. Now the fun begins. I mixed up a color from several different shades of blue and even a bit of gray until I got a blue-gray tint that made me happy. And then using a nice small fine-tipped brush, I started painting from the center of the snowflake out. I wanted the end result to look like the most intense color is in the very center and then it fades out towards the outside edges. And at the very edges, I would lay down a brush full of clean water just to encourage the paint to thin and spread. I feel like I should clarify, although I'm sure you figured it out already for yourself, but I don't paint this quickly in real life. I've sped the video up substantially so that it doesn't last all afternoon and hopefully even fits within a 5-minute time limit. So now I do the same thing around the edges of the J and the Y, except I'm using a little bit more water in the paint so that it will dry out even lighter. As it dries, you can see the various pigments in the paint color kind of separate, and I don't mind that because after all, that is the magic and the unpredictability of watercolor painting. So now I just go back in a few places where I feel like it could use a little bit more intensity and just add another layer of light color over top of what's already there, and then just use some water to kind of blend it and wash it out together. So I set that card panel aside for a little bit, and once it was good and dry, I came back with a fine micron pen and outlined everything, the J, the snowflake, and the Y, with tiny little stitch lines. And again, not real life speed. So let's leave that card panel for now and move on to the second one. I started off with every intention of tracing the outlines of 3 big snowflakes, but once I realized just how long that was going to take, I dialed it back to 1. Which, in my opinion, turns that single snowflake into a much more special element. You've already watched me paint one snowflake, so I'm not going to make you watch another, but suffice it to say I did the exact same thing as on the first card, first painting and then outlining with tiny pen stitches. After that, I added some hand-sketched snowflakes just to keep the big one company. So here they are together and almost finished. I think I'm just going to add some paint splatters and then I can call it good. There are any number of ways to add paint splatters, and really it's up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. I like to use a long thin liner brush with lots of water, and I'm mixing up individual puddles of the various shades that I used to create the original blend. I'm just going to buzz through the assembly of these cards fairly quickly because this is fairly self-explanatory, I think. To assemble the cards, I started by trimming them down to the sizes I wanted, and then I took the panels to my sewing machine and added some stitched accent lines. Next, I cut some pieces of coordinating black patterned paper to adhere to either side of the painted panel. Time now for the sentiments. I've already stamped and white heat embossed the Happy Winter sentiment for one card, and now I'm doing the To the World sentiment for the second card. I didn't have any stamp sets with that phrase in them, and you just kind of need that for a joy card, don't you think? So I made up the phrase with the Mama Elephant Bella Letters set. So watch what I do here. Did you see that? I glued my card closed. I do that on occasion because I use 110-pound cardstock for my bases, and when they're freshly folded, they don't lay perfectly flat for a little bit. So I often tape my card closed with repositionable tape runner just while I'm working on the front, and then I use one of those rubber eraser thingies to remove the adhesive. So for this card, I popped up the sentiment on some foam tape, and then I added some clear sequins to finish it off. I did much the same for the joy card, so I won't make you watch it too. Thanks for stopping by today. If you liked what you saw, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I'll be back soon with another card video, and I hope you'll be here too.